Hello, my name is Eleanor, and today I want to share 3 programming habits I picked up during my time as a professional musician. So a little bit of background real quick. My background in music is that I have 3 degrees in music, and I sustained myself for about a decade performing with these ensembles: Pacific Symphony, LA Opera, Vegas Philharmonic, and a few video game and film recording sessions. So my background in software is that I'm self-taught. I don't have any degrees. I never went to a boot camp, and I've worked at one of these companies since 2015. Currently, I'm a software engineer at Credit Karma. And all of this happened in the lovely city of Los Angeles. Quick geography refresher. Okay, let's get to it. So the first habit is to regularly review fundamentals. Musicians learn this from the very beginning. To sound your best, you have to stay in shape and revisit the muscle groups to be a dynamic and flexible artist. Most programmers I know only spend time on fundamentals when they're preparing for a job interview, but this is short-sighted. For programmers, it's more than just knowing the particulars of your language, but also what's happening at the compiler level and why your code will run faster if you form objects in a consistent way. It's learning how your browser is making decisions on what to pull down and when. It's spending a little bit of time learning editor shortcuts to reduce the space between cognition and code. And for any Vim users listening in the audience, there's this really good site called Vim Golf that will take your Vim skills to the absolute next level. That's where I learned about macros, and it blew my mind. So doing these kinds of things are what will make you a more flexible and creative problem solver. So number 2 is to deepen your understanding by teaching. So first, many people make the mistake of assuming that great performers are also good teachers, but this is, of course, not necessarily true. Too often, people will tell me that they were discouraged from playing music because of an early teacher who convinced them that they lacked the talent necessary to even enjoy trying, which is a tragedy. Don't let this happen to you. If a colleague isn't helping or an article doesn't make sense, try to find another explanation from a different angle. The best teachers I had were able to describe the same ideas in 5 different ways because they know that people learn differently. But also, this skill of teaching didn't happen overnight, but with practice. You can actually start practicing teaching today. Answer a question on Stack Overflow, or next time you talk to your parents, try to explain in depth the problems you're going through technically right now. You might be surprised. And the last one's probably the most important. It's to remember why you're doing any of this at all, why you love it. Here's a nice quote by Beethoven that sums it up nicely. If you stay in touch with the things about your craft that really light your fire, whether it's building an empathetic interface or just the simple joy of making an 8-bit cat fly through outer space, a bunch of good things happen. Stuff that's boring or difficult becomes easier to power through. For me, it's stuff like updating React Router or configuring my Webpack to do all the cool, fancy browser stuff that I've just learned about. Or those who are worried about being bad at something might be encouraged to just start where you are rather than not start at all. And when you allow yourself to make mistakes and experiment, you're going to be more creative. So, in summary, review and dive deeper into fundamentals. Musicians do it, athletes do it, you can too. Teach what you learned to find out what you really know and understand, and reconnect with what matters. It just makes everything easier. That's it.
Hey everybody, really excited to be here. So I'm continuing the music scene. Just really blown away by how many people have had this influence. I'm a musician, I'm also a programmer, and here's my story, and I'm kind of have a similar story here. So I work for a company called 201 Creative. Just real quickly, we're really happy to be a bronze sponsor. We're based in the US, but I live in Berlin, so we do a lot of consulting for JavaScript and training related to Ember and React as well. So I'm a real jazz fan. Just in my 2 nights in Barcelona, I've already been to 2 clubs. So on Wednesday, I was at this place called the Harlem Jazz Club, which was really cool. Saw this great band, and I heard another great band yesterday at Jamboree. So turns out there's a really awesome live music scene in Barcelona. So I really love jazz. In New York, there's a jazz club I really like called Smalls. This is what it looks like on the outside, this on the inside. And Smalls has this incredibly warm vibe. It's probably the best jazz club in New York because all the musicians get in for free, they all hang out, they all play in each other's band. There's a really organic vibe. And one of the things I love about jazz is everyone has really strong personalities in the band. One person might be the leader, but everyone else really contributes to the overall environment in the music. And often, one day one person will be a leader, like Miles Davis could be the leader, and then Herbie Hancock's the leader the next day. So I thought it'd be really cool to explore the social graph of how different musicians are connected by how they play with each other. And some people have actually done this for recordings, but I thought it would be cool to do it with Small's Jazz Club, because it turns out their whole calendar, going back to like 1994, is on the web. So I pulled it all into a database, and I built this website, which I call Splanky. So this is built in Ember in D3, and then it uses Elixir on the back end. So this is basically 1 month worth of shows at Smalls. There's probably about 100 shows, like 3 shows a day. And each dot is a musician, and the lines show how they're connected to each other. So there's already an interesting story here, I think. Like some of these clusters on the left, which are just maybe 4 people connected, that's one quartet. That was their one time playing at Smalls that month. There's a quintet there. These individual dots are probably, I think, someone who runs a late night jam session. They don't really credit who the people that they're playing with. They start at 1 a.m. and they go to 4 in the morning. But then in the middle, there's this interesting story where just in September, there's people playing 2 or 3 times. And there's a few interesting things there. So the colors represent different instruments. So light blue is bass players. And it's really common. Good bass players are hard to find. So if you're a good bass player, lots of people are going to want to play with you. So often the same bass player could be playing at Smalls 2 or 3 times with different people. And there's almost like a few sub-scenes here. I can kind of move these around. This is really fun. These are called force diagrams in D3. So I thought it's cool, just in September, there's this interesting, these sub-scenes here on the right, here and here with these musicians who are connected and not connected to anyone else. And then there's this big kind of tail going through here of these people. It's like 6 degrees of separation for jazz, I think it's really cool. So a couple fun things I can do with this. So I can pick one individual musician, and then I get a slightly different view, which is basically I have all the data for 2018, and this is just this one musician, a bassist named Ugana Okego, who's really, really great. So you can see over the course of the year, there's a story here where there's kind of 4 or 5 bands that he plays with maybe once every couple of months. So over the course of the year, the Jeremy Manassia Quintet gets to play 2 or 3 times, and he's always in that show. The Michael Weiss Quintet, plays 2 or 3 times. He gets to play there. So there's kind of this, again, 6 degrees of separation of how he's connected. So these are just the musicians who Ugana is connected to. I added this neat feature that takes it one step further. So it's like, of all the people he's connected to, who are they connected to? And usually you get pretty much the whole scene when you get this view. It's a little hard to navigate, but it also illustrates how interconnected the scene of this one club is. So I really like just looking at this data. When I maybe go to the club, when I'm in New York and I hear someone I like to go on this page and visualize, who are the people they play with. Another thing I've added is the leaderboard. So this is, who's had the most gigs, and this caused a bit of a stir. Some musicians were like, oh, I knew it was that person when I posted it. So some things, there's 2 different ways to look at this data. On the right, it's who's had the most gigs. And then there's also who's played with the most people, which I think there's some things in common, but there's some things that are different too. So first of all, if we go to the bottom, there's a long tail of people who've played maybe once in the last year at Smalls, right? Or twice. But up at the top, there's some of these people who have played 39, 38 times. Stacy Dillard is an amazing saxophone player. The story there is probably that he has a weekly late night gig, or he's just super popular and plays in a bunch of different people's gigs, so you get kind of points for that. But then there's some people on the left who have played with a lot of people but haven't necessarily had as many gigs. I think Joel Fromm is a good example. I should look on my screen. So he's a really popular, and sometimes you get people, they get a lot of points if they've been in a big orchestra, like a no-net. So that's my project, splanky.net. It is on the web, even though I'm running it locally, so check it out and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Okay, hello. Actually, it will be multi-track lighting talk. I have 5 minutes, so I can talk about a few things at once. Just here enjoy 2 demos of nice web applications. And who of you liked yesterday Modern Memex talk? Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And I'm just wondering, who has better interface, NSA or our friend Andrew, for browsing our data? And also, I hear on conferences a lot about how complex things are, how hard it is to understand them, but then the most impressive talks are made by one person. The product is complex, it's impressive, and then I feel this cognitive dissonance. Should I use these tools which claim I'm stupid and I need them help to make something complex, or I just should follow these people who showed us complex stuff, and they don't say you just can't understand it. So let's see what's happening on demo. This technology is much older than React. It's called IMBA. I will show some resources after the demos. Both web applications I'm showing were made before 2013, like 2013 around, and they are fast and they are impressive in how they are interacting with user. You can write in this technology also things for mobile, which will be at least 60 FPS. You just, before this rendering, even in browser, I would just throttle so it's not faster. And then, let me see what resources I have to show. Oh, sorry for hiding the demo. So first, check out the website of the technology. Then you have code casts made by the author of this technology. This is the learning platform for any front-end tools. Also, you can learn about IMBA. It's written in IMBA. And then you have benchmarks, which is the main subject of this talk. I should have it somewhere. Just a sec. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. What's the difference between independent technology and things we all know? The first difference we see is like bundle is twice less. The second difference we see is about 20, 30 times faster. This time is 20, but still it's like 8,000 operations versus 4,000. And actually, we can't benchmark React since last year when they introduced React Fiber, so they don't render each time you call render. So it's with old React, it's like 100 times faster. And this is the proper measurement, since we just can't compare both these both functions, which one renders and one renders maybe. And let's go back to links. I still have a minute. So the second link is just the chat. Okay. When you can talk about IMBA, I also made, this is my best talk about IMBA, which explains a lot of misunderstandings in modern front-end architectures. And the last one explains why IMBA is so fast, because it's many, many times faster than virtual DOM tools. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Robert, and I'm going to talk about mob programming. Few people might know it, few people might think, what? Mob programming means to do the same thing at the same time, on the same place, and at the same computer. This is new. We have basically two roles and one machine in mob programming. One role is the navigator. The navigator thinks and discusses and then explains it, and he explains it to the driver. The driver drives, which means he listens, he tries to understand, and if he doesn't understand, then he asks, and he types into the computer. And we have a timer, which rings every n minutes, and when it rings, you rotate the roles, so the next guy is the driver then. So it's just like pair programming, but cooler because you can work with a whole team, which means everyone is a navigator except the one who drives. There are three main requirements for mob programming, which are you need exactly one computer, you need at least one big screen or projector, and you need a mouse and a keyboard. The second requirement is mindset. You need to be respectful with your teammates. Kindness and consideration are important. The third requirement is that all required competences that you need to solve the problem have to be in the team. The rules. Rule 1 is set up a timer and stick to it, which means don't excuse or don't finish the line, really stick to it, like on second. Second rule, when the alarm goes off, stand up and move, do it. Don't switch the keyboard, don't roll around in the room, stand up, and there is no your chair, it doesn't exist. Rule 3, when you need to leave, just leave. When you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, no one cares. You're not always needed. Why is this so cool? It's cool because it is less waste, it is more speed, it is better learning, it is a higher quality, code quality. It's more social, and it's way more fun. How does this make any sense? It makes sense because you have no more waiting. You don't need to do stuff like code reviews or any passing around pieces of code or pull requests or whatever. You get a constant pace, and you constantly can work and achieve goals. You have fewer context switches because all the great brains that are there in the team are focused on the same problem, which means the problem can be solved, and then you can switch the context together, and then you can solve the next problem. It mitigates the bus factor. The bus factor is the factor that describes the probability that one in the team might get hit by a bus overnight, and the knowledge might be gone. You don't need to talk about things twice. There's no big time distance between planning it and then separating and then replanning or re-talking, whatever. You just do it immediately. You code it on the fly, and this avoids very expensive misunderstandings. Another advantage is you have one team and one language. In domain-driven design, this is called ubiquitous language, which means that when I say A, my colleague will understand A and not A1 or B or anything else. You have very short feedback cycles because you get the small features done, and you can show the small iterations you do very quickly to the PO, to the customer, or whoever, maybe to yourself. You have no long dailies because, I mean, everyone is in the context all the time, so why have dailies, right? You don't need reviews because there were enough people staring at the code on the fly. It's more like planning, implementing next. There is no almost done or I'm done, but I need to wait for the other guy or something like this. There is just, we are done, full stop. You don't have distractions. You can work focused all the time, but there are some downsides. You have no distractions, which means you cannot look cat videos, unicorns, nothing. It's exhausting, it really is. Some teams just do it 3 days a week or so because it really is more exhausting than working alone or in pair. Reading is hard because everyone is reading at a different speed. Some people tend to read very structured, others prefer to jump around all the time, and former are not able to follow those that don't understand how to read from the left to the bottom right. Latter don't understand how even understand even single words. So slowly they're just scanning for the solution of the specific problem. You get the point. Conclusion, try mob programming.
Robert.
Check these links. Questions?
When we're
No
done,
time.
we're done. When
This
we're
is
done,
really
we're
good.
done. And
Hello
go.
guys, how are you doing up there? Nice. So I'm gonna give you 3 practical tips to code accessible websites. Hello, I'm Andrea. I'm a front-end architect at Net Group. We do mainly e-commerce, so these tips are used in production in e-commerce websites. And I'm also the proud creator of Vanilla Lazy Load script, which is a script to offload the content which is below default, so it improves page index and time to interact if it is 100% junk-free guaranteed. And it's built with ECMAScript modules and Rollup.js, so you might be interested in taking a look at the code because I think it's very beautiful, but it's mine, so okay. So about accessibility, it's about writing semantic markup. It's all about that, and it improves the life of the blind users, which uses screen readers, and also of spiders, like Googlebot or Bingbot, you know, that kind of spiders. And also helps keeping those people away from your company, which are lawyers. Okay, so number one tip is how to make a skip to content link. It might sound easy, like I put a link on my page, which skips to the content. Yeah, bad developer. This just scrolls down, but it has no effects on the screen readers. What you need to do is to listen to hash change event, get the ID from the substring, from the location hash, and once you have the ID, get the element and focus it using this function. So you check if the element is not natively focusable, and if it is not, you make it focusable by JavaScript only, assigning tab index -1, and then focus it. So this repositions the screen reader's head, so the blind user is actually sent to that part of the page. Number two, how to mark up a table. This is very simple. A table is, for our eyes, very simple to read, because for every cell, we know which is the table header on top or on the left. But for a blind user, it might be a nightmare. They can go horizontally and vertically in the table, but they need to have a reference of where they are, so the coordinates of the table. So you just code the table like that. You put a table heading and a table head and table body tags, the table header tags for the cells, which are headers, sorry, and you specify the scope if it's for a column or for a row. And this is pronounced automatically by screen readers like Apple's VoiceOver. Number three, how to notify that something has changed on the page. So this is an item page when I can select, a color and a size. And now the blue color is selected and the 17 size is selected, and I can see pale blue 17 size. So what if the user selects the white color? The 17 gets deselected because it's not available in white, and the white no size selected appears down there. And the shopping bag is also disabled, and they might not understand why. So we need to notify them. So we use the ARIA live regions, which are regions that are pronounced to the screen readers. Using the ARIA relevant additions, we say, whenever we add something to this area, you pronounce it. So when we change the selected combination, we copy the DOM and append it inside the ARIA region, and it's get read by the screen readers. The difference between ARIA Live Polite and ARIA Live Assertive is that the assertive interrupts the screen reader, whatever it is reading, whether Polite waits until he's finished speaking. So assertive might be used for errors, for example. Okay? And this is it. I'm on time. Remember that most of the things are solved using semantic markup. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Berkay. I am a front-end lead developer at Jotform, and I am here for telling a story. This story about the sharing. We are using React.js, and I really love React. And we have a lot of React projects, a lot of React web applications, and we have a shared library for using between these applications. One day we decided to recreate our mobile application from scratch using React Native, and my team volunteered for this task. I saw that I need to recreate lots of existing React components for mobile platform because it is really a different platform, and this job was huge. Instead of doing this, I looked for another way. Now I will give you a demo. Can you see it? Can you read the left side? Okay. In this folder, I have a web application, I have a mobile application, and the shared library. The component library has a component named profile box, and this profile box contains a card, an image, and text with a simple styles. Now, if I go back to my web application, my web application is using the profile box component from our shared library. Also, my mobile application, and it's a React Native application, is using the same profile box component. And the results are here. The first component is rendering inside a React Native environment, and it is also rendering in a web environment. But how it's possible, let's look for it. If we go back to the profile box component, we can see that we have a card, image, and text element here. And when I go to the text element, there are two different files, index.js and index.native.js. This is the abstraction layer for me. The React Native's module system is allowing us to do it. When we are in the web environment, it is rendering as a div, but when we are in the mobile environment, it is rendering as a React Native text. And it's all. Now you have a basic component library to share your components across web and mobile environments. It is really all. Thank you.